Have you ever caught yourself building for validation instead of value? And how do you stay honest about your intentions?
Of course is the answer.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, self-awareness.
Being too in love with my own argument.
I find it mostly when I feel in a competitive situation, ego kicks in and I want to win for the sake of winning, not for the right reasons.
There's a couple of things I'm doing in the business which I've questioned over the last 6 months, and I've sat back and realised that it actually is because of my ego.
But at the same time, I think that's also a fine line between having an ego that's playing too big a role and having confidence in yourself.
If you want your body to be in good nick, don't consume shit all the time. If you want your mind to be in good nick, get off social media. Get out of it. It's just toxic. It's horrible stuff and it trains people. Like, it rewires everyone's brain.
Me dead. I mean,
There's
that's the biggest waste of time.
feature on a lot of these things. It's called the unfollow button.
Yeah.
I don't think that's hustle culture.
No.
Sometimes you
No,
do
you
just
do
have to
be
work
nice.
on
I
it.
don't think
Yeah.
Hormozy's hustle at all.
No.
I think he's very substantial.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life. I'm your host, Tracy, the founder of Design Studio Perth, and I'm pleased to say that today is not your average episode. We're diving into some controversial topics, the real business truths most avoid. It's a conversation that needs to be had. Do you know what I'm tired of? The perfect packaged, politically correct conversations we think we're supposed to have as business owners. The filtered leadership advice, the highlight reels dressed up as strategy, the buzzwords, the box ticking, the pressure to always say the right thing. I'm simply over it. Because real business isn't polished. It's personal, it's unpredictable, it's lonely, it's heavy, and sometimes it's downright brutal. But it's also powerful, it's purpose-driven, it's full of momentum, meaning, and moments that make you feel more alive than anything else. It's all of it, the pressure, the pride, the freedom, the fear, the mess, and the magic. I've brought together 3 powerful business owners who have lived the highs, the lows, and everything in between. They're not just here to perform, they're here to tell the truth. And let me be clear, this isn't about being edgy for the sake of it. It's about telling the whole story. The parts we bury, the questions we avoid, the pressure we carry behind the scenes while trying to look like we've got it all together. So whether you're running your first business or your 5th, whether you're thriving, flailing, or somewhere in between, this one's for you. If you're ready for a conversation that strips away the bullshit and drives headfirst into the realities of business and life, you're in the right place. So who exactly is pulling up his seat at this no BS unfiltered conversation today? I didn't bring just anyone. They are elite operators, the builders, battlers, and bold enough to share the truth behind the wins and the wounds. They're straight shooters, big thinkers, brave builders. Let me introduce you to the legends joining me today for this raw and real conversation. First up, we have Paul Claessen. Paul Claessen has lived the highs, the lows, the lonely trenches of business. He's built companies from scratch, turned around a listed tech business, and knows what it takes to survive the pressure most people never talk about. Now, through Paul Claessen Consulting, he's backing gutsy business owners with strategy, support, and the kind of truth most consultants are too polite to say out loud. When he's not deep in strategy or calling out BS, you'll find him on his bike clocking up some serious kilometers. Next up, we have Sophie Stott. Sophie Stott is the kind of entrepreneur who doesn't just run a family business, she reinvents it. Since stepping into a managing director role at QuickMail, she's transformed a traditional mailing company into a modern e-commerce and distribution machine that now serves over 200 clients and turns over 7 figures. But her impact goes beyond business. Sophie is a visionary, a leader, and a person who's shown incredible courage in the face of pressure and expectation. And when she's not running the show QuickMail, she's in the arena, pursuing her passion for horses and show jumping with the same drive she brings to business. Last but not least, we have Marcus Procopio. Marcus isn't your average lawyer, and that's exactly why clients trust him with the stuff that really matters. With over 20 years in the game, Marcus has done it all: litigation, property, business deals, boardrooms, and now runs his own firm, Procopio Legal. He's known for bringing clarity to complexity and telling it straight, even when it's not what people want to hear. Whether you're facing a legal storm or strategic crossroads, Marcus is the calm in the chaos. And when he's not in lawyer mode, you'll find him on the guitar, in the gym, or harvesting fruit like the overachiever that he is. So, with these three in the room, people who've lived through pressure, reinvention, and high stake decisions, let's get into the conversations that really make it past the surface level. These are the ones that challenge what we believe about business, leadership, and life. Let's kick it off. So, our first topic, guys, welcome to the show before I get ahead of myself.
Thanks, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Pleasure to be
Thank
here.
you. Thanks, guys. So, the first one is ego versus purpose. So, some businesses are genuinely built to solve problems, but let's be honest, some are built to fuel someone's ego. Have you ever caught yourself building for validation instead of value? And how do you stay honest about your intentions? Paul, did you want to kick us off?
Of course is the answer. I think I've done lots of things for ego in times. It's mostly, actually for me, I find it mostly when I feel in a competitive situation, ego kicks in and I want to win for the sake of winning, not for the right reasons. Or when I feel slighted by somebody, that's very much an ego-based response for me. I have this very hard line around respect, and when I think that somebody's been disrespectful to me, my ego kicks in, and it takes an awful lot of either self-discipline or energy to melt that feeling and to not respond from the perspective of ego. So I think it's okay to feel the ego things. I don't think there's any issues with that, because to fight that's impossible. But to not, what I really try and discipline myself to do is not to react or respond from the basis of ego. And, sometimes I do it.
Yeah.
There's no escaping that. I can be a hypocrite and correct.
Soph?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, self-awareness. So being aware when it is about purpose and what you're really achieving and driving to achieve in the business. And then there comes times where you're like, well, that's my ego talking to me there. So as Paul said, being aware of where you're sitting in making these decisions. I've certainly seen there's a couple of things I'm doing in the business which I've questioned over the last 6 months, and I've sat back and realised that it actually is because of my ego that I'm doing those things, but I'm okay with that because I want to prove to myself that I can do it. So there's a purpose to what we're trying to achieve, which is to grow the business, to make sure that our family has the money to survive, to make sure that we can continue to employ people in our business.
Yeah.
Then in looking at those individual decisions, some of them are about my ego because I want to prove to myself that I can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Marcus?
I think for me and practically every other lawyer that I've ever seen or heard of, it's a career-long struggle to keep your ego and irrational confidence in check. And I can say from my experience where I've fallen foul of that in the past is being too in love with my own argument and trying too hard to win sometimes what is a lost cause before someone else comes along and fishes you out of your own funk and stops you going any further and making a bad problem worse. So I'd like to think I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, better at spotting trouble, knowing when my ego's playing too big a role.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that's also a fine line between having an ego that's playing too big a role and having confidence in yourself, sometimes an irrational confidence so that you can push through certain boundaries. So it's not just a simple case of saying, well, I'm not going to be egotistical today.
Yeah.
It's not that obvious. And the other time I sort of see it in business and especially again with lawyers is when you overspend on something that's completely unnecessary for your business or delivering value to your client. A good example would be walking into a major law firm where the entire floor that you arrive on is nothing but a reception that's booked out. The whole floor, rents it out at millions of dollars a year, and there's just a reception desk there and some windows overlooking the river. I dare say there's a bit of ego involved in those kinds of business decisions that get made. And you see it in all other contexts as well. It's needlessly over the top.
Can I chuck a controversy bomb in there?
Yeah, please.
You speak about ego versus purpose. I get really jaded and tired of this constant thing about business owners. We should have this grand purpose about saving the environment or saving some endangered whale or a fucking penguin or something like that. And I use those as metaphors, not necessarily like we're all being constantly kind of fed this narrative that you should have this grand purpose. And I look at it at a much more practical and perfunctory level. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe it's okay to say the purpose of my business is to make a lot of money. I don't think there's anything wrong with that so long as you can own up to it. Because often when you see this thing about, my purpose is to, to save the endangered turtle at the Jack Adder Lake or whatever, it creates damage inside the business because you're not focused on the things which you need to do, which is perform as a business. And then the collateral damage off the back of that is you're not paying suppliers, you're not paying your staff, you're not able to invest in your business to provide a really good quality service. I get very, very tired of that, people standing up and saying you should have a bigger purpose. I don't think you should. If you want, you do it.
I've struggled with that in our business because I'm a fairly practical person, and for us, the purpose is to run a business that can sustain, as I said before, our family, but also our staff.
Yes.
So I think about going to work every day and being able to pay the 25 plus staff that we have.
Yeah.
And that's enough of a purpose. I'm
Hands down.
not saying you can't do more, but you shouldn't, like Paul said, feel that you're not saving some endangered animal.
Yeah.
We are making sure that those 25 people go home and can feed their family. And that's a really good purpose. And for me, it's good enough.
Yeah, like this whole triple bottom line stuff, like a lot of these modern kind of progressive causes that are getting injected into small to medium-sized enterprises, we don't have the latitude at SME level to be thinking about anything but we're competing against a lot of headwinds, bigger competitors, bigger clients, government regulation. All of these things are very, very difficult parts of the surface area of business to navigate. And then we're told also that you should have these other grand, purposes. Again, I'm never going to argue with somebody if their purpose is to, build let's say schools for the impoverished in remote Vietnam or wherever.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think the way to do that is make sure your business is highly profitable, very successful, take the dividends from that business to the extent that you can then go and invest them in those causes. Like, to me, conflating those two things, the business should be about providing that education for Vietnam. I don't believe that's necessarily true, and I think you end up running foul of the idea like you've got to pay your staff, you've got to feed your family, you've got to build some wealth, you've got these are moral obligations you must meet. To then put another one on top of that, I don't know. I find it confusing.
I think it's complete and utter horse shit at any level of business.
Thank you.
There we go.
Boom, we're alive.
It's just absolutely tiring to have to listen to it all.
Yeah.
And any company, business or organisation that allows themselves to be so drastically converged to the point that they're talking about political issues and where it has nothing to do with the productive value they deliver to their customers, to their clients, that organisation is now doing a disservice to its shareholders, to its staff, to everybody involved. Ultimately, it's up to your customer to decide, has this service provider or provider of goods delivered enough value that I want to pay them money? Have they solved a problem? Have they done something that I like? And getting involved in naturally divisive topics like social justice causes and political causes couldn't be further from that purpose. And ultimately, that is the purpose of a business. It can't be everything to everyone on every issue.
But you get the joke. You go to something like, and I'll pick on AIM. You go to something like AIM, or you listen to what Gary Martin says, and I'm sure Gary Martin's smart and all these sorts of things, but the consistent messaging from places like that, AIM, AICD, all of these organisations that purport to be experts, they're constantly dragging people into these social causes all the time. And people walk out of those, seminars and breakfasts and all those sorts of things talking about, we need to do this and we need to do that. We need to have this policy and that policy, none of which relate to the production of profit and the accumulation of a healthy balance sheet. And I think that is toxic. I think it's a toxic environment, and somehow someone's got to stand up to SME owners and say, no. it's fine. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. I don't believe there is any obligation for them to do that beyond making money. That's what a business is about.
So what I'm hearing you guys say, it's fine to not feel guilty about not having like a charity associated with your business or wanting to be do something else. Yeah.
I don't feel guilty, and I don't have one.
Yeah, if you want to give to charity, you give to charity.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, that's been the problem over the last 50 to 100 years is that donations were made privately and all sorts of wonderful charitable things were built, particularly by churches, and now that's sort of been handed over to the government. And everyone, from what I can see, has been found wanting on the delivery of those kinds of charitable services because it just doesn't work the same way. So charity is one thing. Moralising people, moralising your customers, pissing them off and dividing them, that's got nothing to do with running a successful business.
And it's unacceptable.
Completely.
Because it's a moral hazard to not focus your efforts and energies. I say making money. Maybe the better way of saying it is to maximise the value that you provide to your customers, and you measure that through the amount of profit you make. If you're making a lot of profit in a business and accumulating a healthy balance sheet, it's a great proxy for the quality of service that you provide. To me, mixing all those things up, it's not right. I don't believe it's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine for 1 minute I had a prospective customer come in. I say, well, look, I'd like to act for you, but only if you've got enough Swahili-speaking people within your organisation. Otherwise, your values don't align with mine. I mean, that's just absurd. But that's precisely what I see many business proprietors and organisations doing day in and day out, and they wonder why it's not working.
But it certainly happens when you're putting government and large
100%.
organisation tenders together. You have to prove some crazy things around being, making sure that you are accessible to all sorts of different people and how you're fair and equitable, and they don't actually tell you what the answer to that is because there isn't an answer. It's different to everybody, and within our business, we employ people from a whole range of different cultures, but I don't want to advertise that. That's just what we do. It's not how I want to sell myself. It's just what we do. We're fair and equal. The best person for the job will get the job. But I'm not going to write that down in a tender document to prove it to somebody. I don't think that's right.
Isn't the ultimate form of diversity merit?
Agreed.
You don't care. Stripe, type, colour, whatever. If they're good for the job, they're good for the job.
Exactly.
And this whole idea of being colourblind is disappearing. But I do think, to your point, I've seen tenders where major corporates, BHP, Rio Tinto, people like that, speak to their suppliers and mandate things like diversity policies and mandate things like reconciliation action plans. And it's like, I don't know where that's become the responsibility of SMEs particularly. That's all I care about. The SMEs are, it's hard enough to run a small business today. Why are we and they carry the burden of the economy. Why are we making it harder? Why are we ankle tapping these people all day, every day? It's horrible.
This is what happened to us in a recent tender that we didn't win. We asked for feedback. We were told you need a better inclusivity and diversity policy.
Right.
But they couldn't tell me what that looked like.
Oh.
I find that's a good sign as to someone you wouldn't want to do business with. They're just going to make your life a misery as you go along. And I've seen countless clients that have run aground doing business with government, and it's because they've got the big amounts of money to play around with. Here's $1 billion contract. You want that $1 billion, don't you? Go fetch Fido. And then when all is said and done, people end up worse off because of all this nonsense. And the way that the pyramid, so to speak, works is that the person that suffers the most at the end of all of these kinds of boondoggles is the small subcontractor at the bottom, because by then there's no more money left in the project. Everyone's scrimped it off. I wouldn't even want to know how much the diversity officers have been paid along the way. And little subcontractor Larry has got nothing at the end of it all. And I can tell you where all the inefficiencies have stemmed from. And so someone like me anyway would would steer well clear of doing business with those kinds of organisations. And I wonder when the penny's going to drop in the future, where people just won't want to do business with governments at the way they're doing it at the moment.
Call it government, call it corporates, because the corporates are now so big and so bloated, they're just privately owned government departments. So BHP is literally a privately owned government department. Companies like Sophie's sometimes don't have a choice. That is where the market is for those, goods and services. It's very, very difficult to avoid them, and therefore it's difficult to prevail in those sorts of environments where they mandate as part of the tender selection process. And I would bet you London to a brick, the people that win these things, they've got a shiny policy. I reckon on a percentage of enacted basis, it would be about 0%. But damn, they've got a great policy.
But bringing it back to ego versus purpose, in our business, I'm starting to say, well, I don't want to work for those types of businesses.
Yeah.
And so the ego would be nice to say, look who we're working for, this big brand. But the purpose of the business for our business is to help other businesses grow.
Yeah.
So, it swings around where we see those tenders come up and we're just not even applying for them. And we directing our marketing efforts and all of our focus on those smaller businesses, because I want to work with people that are more like us and have the same values as us.
Yeah.
The other idiots in SME land.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is an ego thing. Oh, we've won that $1 billion contract. Look at us. Oh, okay, what was the margin on that when all was said and done? Did you, how did that go? And I'm sure there's profits and margins to be had, but they're nowhere near as lucrative as they may appear at first glance.
Yeah. And do you think if one doesn't get your ego in check, it can kind of, it's not very, how can I word this? If you don't get your ego in check, it can actually destroy what you set out to achieve?
I don't think it's that reductive.
You don't think so?
Jeff Bezos, have you seen him lately?
Mm.
I reckon his ego's completely out of control.
Yeah.
Look at someone like Larry Ellison, who runs Oracle, completely out of control. I don't think it's as reductive as that.
Sure.
I think the answer is maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Like it doesn't really, it's not again, I just think so long as you can boil it all down to a sensible decision at the end of the day, you can sustain, I guess it just becomes the counterbalance, right? If you've got a massive ego, you have to make really good decisions.
Yeah.
You got to back it.
Yeah.
If you're someone like Bezos or Donald Trump and you're in those positions and you've made it, then you've got a bit more scope to let rip with your ego or your irrational confidence. Professional athletes, if they don't have irrational confidence and an ego, they won't succeed by and large. They're very extremely minded, and you see the finished product, and it's beautiful. But if you're a little battler at the bottom and you start walking around with a massive ego, you can have a bad time. And you've sort of got to realise your place in the world and say, well, act consistently with it.
I do believe it just boils down to, like, if you want to look at it on the most reductive basis, it's how effectively can you make decisions?
Yeah.
And you look at guys like Bezos, you look at guys like Ellison, you look at guys like Elon Musk, all those guys with Trump, like they do make better decisions more of the time.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they're successful. I don't think the ego necessarily, like it's not if you've got an ego, you will fail. I don't think it works like that.
Okay.
I think it's also very difficult to be looking at all of these people we've just mentioned from a distance like this, not knowing who they are as people. And while they might demonstrate a bit of an ego publicly, that's one thing. But who they are as people individually, we wouldn't know.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And it is also a complete confirmation bias. You should be in social media. That's how you'll be successful. Why do you know that? Well, because Mark Zuckerberg's got $200 billion in the bank, or a value of $200 billion. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, because look at all the failed social media. It's just this kind of thing. Like we get fed an image.
It's the classic case of someone's house sells down the street and someone thinks that, well, I live on the same street, so therefore my house must be worth the same. And it tends not to be.
So that leads me on to our next topic, which is hustle culture. We love to glorify hustle, but sometimes it feels like people are just staying busy to avoid something deeper. What's your relationship with hustle? Paul, I know it's your favourite word. And has there been a moment where you realised it wasn't serving you anymore? So did you want to kick us off?
Well, I think it's more about sustainability than speed. So making sure that whatever you need to do, you can get it done during the week or the time that you've got.
Yeah.
It's not about fast all the time. So for me, sometimes you're really busy and you're working extra hours and you're doing longer days, and then you might have to take your foot off the accelerator for a little while. So I think that, you do what you have to do. You can't keep your foot on the accelerator that hard all the time. It won't work. I think small incremental wins build. You get that compounding growth. So that's kind of how I try and run my life, and with the team that we've got, try and encourage that with the team as well.
Yeah.
Our business is very much, we don't control the work that comes into our business. Our clients control that. So we never know if we're going to be super busy from one day to the next. So we have to learn to ride that wave, and you can't be, I suppose, out of control when that work comes in. You just have to go, well, this is what we've got, and we get it done. We can't always be 110%. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
Paul?
I don't even know what the word hustle means, if I'm honest. I think what it's come to mean is this kind of
if you're not exhausted, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I
busy.
get that, but it's more this get on Instagram, become an influencer, become a finfluencer, and if that doesn't work, pivot, and all these kind of and I'm running a side hustle, all these hackneyed cliches that have been driven by the social media thing. To me, that's all become code for just wake up and kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Maybe in all those parts there's a little bit of merit in all of that, but I don't think anything beats focus, grinding. It's so fucking hard to just wake up and get kicked in the face, sun up to sundown, with this hope that someday it'll turn out. So you got to be really careful about what you focus on, because you can focus on the wrong thing. Once you work that out, then you've got to grind, and it's just every day grind at it. I think, like Sophie said, it's chasing the exponential wins. How? I don't know how. You've got to chase the compound, which is slow, and eventually it kind of breaks out into some sort of exponential curve. But there's so much of this grind. I know this lady that runs a business called Design Studio Perth.
Oh, really?
Her name's Tracy Fryer.
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard of her.
I've heard of them.
There was a long period of time, if I may say so,
Yeah, go
where
for it.
I think you were very frustrated at the perceived lack of progress.
Oh, completely.
And then it just breaks out. But all that grind and focus led to that. It's just the one more thing that you do each day. So I don't like the hustle thing, because it promotes that you can just go from 0 to 50, in a second if you just do this magic thing. It just doesn't exist. And you only need to look back across the span of time. Look at history. Amazon lost money for how long? A long bloody time.
Yeah.
And then it just, it wasn't magic. It was just constant grind that got them there. So, yeah, I don't even understand this whole thing about hustle and blah, blah, blah. To me, business is basic. And that's outside of all of the financial aspects of business, if you want to look at it from an operational perspective, the best businesses execute, and execution's boring. Stop looking for exciting stuff. It's actually very boring, and you've got to do it and do it repeatedly so you can do it really well. So to Marcus's point, you can charge a premium because you're adding value.
Yeah.
You can't just magically go up your prices. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
So that would be my view of it.
Yeah. Marcus?
Yeah, I remember a word that one of my bosses used to describe this, so to speak, hustle concept, the way I think we're talking about it now. And he called it presenteeism, where people would sit behind their desk until 7 p.m. and then go home because it looks like they've been working hard. And the great thing in law firms and other professional services firms is you have to keep a timesheet.
Yeah.
And you have to bill things to customers, and it's recorded against your name. And the boss gets to say, well, how much money did you make for me this month? Oh, oops, that's a bit shit. What have you been doing? Oh, but I've been sitting behind my desk till 7 o'clock every night. Well, what good is that?
Yeah.
And so that faking it till you make it, you see it all the time. But all that matters is how much money is in the bank at the end of the day. And if there's not enough and you want more, then you need to obviously be changing something up or doing something that's more legitimately valuable in the eyes of your customer. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. It's a great leveler. And the way I describe it, going back to one of my hobbies, is like growing a fruit tree. You plant it, from scratch. It's just a little thing sticking out of the ground. You've got to water it every day. You've got to fertilise it. Every so often you've got to prune it when it needs pruning. And if you think it's just going to show up in a year or two full of fruit and looking great, it's not. It takes 5 to 10 years to hit that level that you want it to. And there's no shortcutting that process. You can't overly force feed them. You can't take photos of other people's fruit trees and put it on your social media and say, well, that is my fruit tree right now.
Or with you in a bikini next to it.
Because I've imagined it, or I identify as a person that's fully grown a fruit tree. None of that shit works. I mean, it's the same with going to the gym. People think, I'm just going to get on the celebrity program and in 6 months I'm going to look fucking awesome. So, well, no, for starters, you need more time than that. The celebrity's probably taken some steroids to shorten that process.
Which ones?
And they're on a completely different regime than what you are. And if you're just a little stick figure and you go in, well, it's going to need more than 6 months, I'm afraid. And business is the same in that regard, and sure, every so often someone hits it big out of nowhere, almost like they've won lotto. Good for them, but that's not any sensible basis on which to run your operation.
It's so rare hits it big in a really short period of time. It's so rare. It's like a lotto win. Like 99.9999999 recurring percent of people playing lotto burn their money.
Yeah.
Like, stop looking at the one person that won it and saying, "Oh, I should be doing that," like gambling effectively.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't pan out that way. It's all based on substance, which is all coming down to you've got to solve a real problem in a very meaningful way, and then you've got to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
But that's the issue. A lot of people don't want to set their purpose and do the work every single day when you don't feel like getting out of bed that early, or it's a rainy day and you don't want to go outside, or someone at work is pissing you off. There's so many things every day. You've got to get over that hump. And the hustle culture thing is about showing everyone, look at me, I'm busy, I'm here, I'm at this, I'm doing that. And most people just don't want to do the work.
No.
And the ones that succeed are either the really lucky ones who win lotto, not many, or the ones who just get in and do the work every day. The little things you need to do, the things that nobody sees behind the scenes. And, and then we all think, oh, well, didn't they get lucky?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really lucky. Lucky they get up every day and do the things
an
they have
overnight
to do.
success that took 15 years.
Yeah.
What most people just don't see, and including people that run their own business maybe for the first time, is that you're watering the tree, you're feeding it, you're not seeing anything on the surface, but underneath those roots are actually doing something. And that the public at large, they don't see the roots that you've generated in your business when, you've been starting up. They think, oh, you're just lucky. These are the same people that if you cut the tree in half, they'll take the fruit on the top and, I'll take the base. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've recently, thanks to Paul, learned the power of focus because, I did push back. Sorry, Paul. But it's just all that hard yards, whether it's fitness, business, just showing up every day. Like you say, Soph, on those days you don't want to show up and just be relentless. No excuses, even being kind to yourself, just showing up all the time. And as of December, Paul, it's really just sort of all come to light. I've still got a lot of work to do, but it's really, really helped.
No, I think it's earlier than December, but I think you're seeing the results of 2 years, I think, of maybe me just bashing you into submission and maybe no, but it is like that. Just pick one thing and go hard at it. Because, again, around this kind of hustle culture, which is all about the presentation of a perfect life. Everything is perfect all of the time. And that's complete bullshit.
It is.
It's like the way I think about it in business is like look at the inventory of fires that you got burning on every single front in your business and kind of go, well, which one's going to maybe consume my business? That's the thing I should focus on. And I've got to let the other fires burn.
Yeah.
Because I've got to absolutely like nail whatever that is so I can advance my business. It's not a particularly positive environment, but it's like grinders win. That's who's like, if you want to look at the normal distribution curve, it's the grinders that win. It's not the lucky ones, and it's not the ones that, sit in the fucking business class suite of a plane and take a photo and say, look how successful I am.
Yeah.
And they've probably done it on a credit card.
Do you think that's why some people just tap out, because they start something, they get going, and then they don't reach that success as quick as what they're hoping for, and then they just go back to doing what they were doing before?
You did a marathon.
I did.
You tell us.
I didn't tap out though.
I'd say that's why 99 out of 100 people don't stay on at the gym.
That's right.
Yeah,
They just
yeah,
don't.
true.
Yeah,
It's hard.
They're looking for
Yeah,
something
it's
that,
the
that
fitness-
wasn't realistic.
And a marathon's not the most fun thing in the world to do. I think I'd rather stick a fork in my eye.
Oh, really? I enjoyed it.
Or go and do an ultra marathon then.
Yeah, I've been told. Maybe I'm a weirdo.
No, but you know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't think it's fun. I don't think you should be looking for fun and, success and rewards and all these sorts of things. It's
Enjoyment though?
I don't know. I don't look for it.
No?
No, for me, the process is the fun.
Yeah.
Like it's not like that I had these great wins today,
Mm.
because it's kind of like most days you wake up and you get kicked in the head from start to end of day, and then it's kind of like the one little win that you get once a month
Yeah.
keeps you coming back. It sounds very negative, but it's not. It's like I like the process myself. I like the suffering. I think the suffering's good. It's good for your soul.
Yeah.
The way it all accumulates over the years, that's one thing I like to sort of tell a lot of juniors that I train. They might not think they're coming along as fast as they would like. So every year or two, look back in the rear view mirror, see where you were, see where you are now. And that you really see how all those every day, as long as you're doing something that just adds to the pile meaningfully and productively, you'll be blown away at how that adds up and takes a life of its own.
Yeah, so true.
But hustle culture does not talk to that. Hustle culture talks to, unless you're, I don't know, unless you're driving a Ferrari and you've got a baller mansion and you've got, all the accoutrement of success, like whatever it happens to be, Balenciaga shoes or, whatever, unless you've got all of that now, you're a complete failure. And I think that's a pretty bitter pill to swallow, because firstly, none of those things indicate success. And secondly, it tells you that, that's the thing that you should pursue. And I don't believe it is the thing you should pursue.
Well, I think we've been lied to for many, many years on that front, because there are countless children that become adults that go into the world thinking that that's what they should be looking for.
Yeah, true.
And that they've all been led astray in that regard. And unfortunately, and myself to a degree, you have to wait until the moment reality slams you in the face, and hopefully some generous people sit you down and go, look, Marcus, it's
been there.
It's actually like this. Maybe you want to try over there.
Yeah.
And then I'm really grateful for those people that have just taken the time out to just turn me around and point me in a better direction in that regard. And you look back not look back. You look at what people think they should be aiming for in life these days, where there is no pain, there is no struggle, there is no conquering adversity that's part of any of what they're doing, and you can just see the complete lack of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And in a way, you feel sorry for them, but ultimately, everyone's got to find their own way.
I don't feel sorry for them.
I feel sorry for someone that's been lied to their whole life and just led in a completely pointless direction. I think that's an awful handicap to have been given up to that point. But once you become an adult and once you've got the ability to go and find things out for yourself, which we've never had a better ability to do that than we do today. Well, I agree. It's on you, and you got to figure it out.
Also, look at what you consume. Like, if you want your body to be in good nick, don't consume shit all the time. If you want your mind to be in good nick, get off social media. Get out of it. It's just toxic. It's horrible stuff, and it trains people. Like, it rewires everyone's brain to be thinking that all of these things are the indicia of success, and they're not. Like, it doesn't matter. It's hollow. Like, so what? Oh, Sophie and I were talking about this morning. I was in an organisation called EO, Entrepreneurs Organisation, and I met a chap, and I won't say their name. The first time I met him, he was driving a Porsche, and for a 2-day trip to Rottnest, opened up the back of the car and pulled out a pile of Louis Vuitton luggage. Now, I tote that up and think, well, there's $50,000 worth of luggage. I don't know. I couldn't give two shits. Anyway, we're at Rottnest, and I'm standing next to him at the Rottnest pub, and he pulls out an Amex Black card. I'm like, damn, this guy's like, I was very new in EI, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Anyway, 3 years later, when he went bankrupt, and I was kind of having a coffee with him, talking to him. It's like, like what's been really hard, and this guy said, like the most difficult thing to deal with in this whole process is having the Porsche repoed and the American Express Black card switched off. And I was like, what about the fact that your family is just like out of a house and
all that important stuff?
And I said, oh, right, okay. What does the Black card give you? And he said, there's not a nightclub in the world I have to queue up for.
Yeah, but people like that are wired differently.
Sure, but I do think that's like there is a bit of a thing that says this is success.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that this guy's no longer with us. But even on that day, I said to him, "Oh, well, okay. Well, I guess it's all gone now." And he said, "I'm never letting go of this Black card." And I said, "Mate, it's been switched off.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with it? Oh, like it's just a reminder.
Jeez.
Why would you want to remind yourself of that?" I look back at people like that, and I think that's the anti-version of what I think is truly successful.
What do you think is truly successful, Paul?
Good question.
Pain, struggling.
Yeah, it's
sucking. He made it clear already.
I do think it's but it's like people have this idea that you kind of start perfect and life just gets shitter as time goes on. I don't get that. Like, I'm 55, I'm 60. Like I shouldn't be able to do this, and because I'm 60, therefore. Well, and it's like, I don't work anymore. I don't need to learn anymore. Or I've learnt it all. I can stop. To me, it's like if you can just have this view of, and it doesn't even have to be improvement, but it's constant sort of toil. I think there is success in the toil, and the toil gives you meaning. Like that to me is the true purpose. Just learning something, solving a problem each day. My grandma lived till I think she was 95.
Wow.
She did bloody crosswords until she was 95, and she was cognitively impeccable. And I look at that and kind of go, wow, my other grandma lived till 92. She had a 1,000-acre farm until she was 89, and she used to go and tend to the farm.
Gee.
Like they just never stopped toiling. I really like that. That to me is success. If you can,
I agree with you. It's the process.
Yes,
that's the fulfillment. That's the bit.
Yeah, it's to be fulfilled, not happy. I think happy is like sugar, whereas fulfilled's like a good steak. That would be my kind of.
Yeah, happiness is a present state of mind, with some sort of thing that might trigger it, and it's fun when it happens, but it is not an outcome of itself.
Yeah.
Nobody just achieves perpetual happiness.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest nonsenses I've heard in my life.
Yes.
We learn the most when we fail.
Yes.
So
every
true.
time we don't get it quite right, every time it doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to, they're actually the times when we learn the most. As long as we're self-aware and we can reflect on it and realise why it didn't work out for us, then we can actually course correct, do something about it, and make sure that next time I'm not going to say that or make that decision or trust that person or whatever it is. That's how you improve, isn't it?
And not
you think
blame. Don't blame. You can't blame.
Yeah.
No, you can reflect and sit, and you can be disappointed in yourself, but I always say with my team or my son, the mark of a person is not making a mistake. The mark of a person is what you do after you've made that mistake. And we have to remember that with ourselves as well. And these people that you're talking about that we're not that keen on, they're not reflecting. They're not thinking about how what they do impacts other people, or the fact that they're really just watching social media or wherever it is and seeing things and, well, I want that. I want to be like that. But I'm not prepared to actually put the work in to do that.
Get there, yeah. Yeah, true.
I kind of look at it and you think, well, who are the people that you admire and that you see good things in, you want to reflect that back on yourself. That same thing of putting, being around people that you want to be like or that you want to improve, be the least smart person in the room.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of that just stems from inner insecurity, basically. Anytime someone's overly portraying an image, it's a cry for attention in some way, shape or form. And we're all insecure creatures at the end of the day, wandering around, but some are a lot more insecure than others. And then they see these things on social media and go, well, I should. The moment you start a sentence with I should or I should be, you're asking for a lot of trouble. And then they go and try and achieve the things they see using the least amount of effort as possible. And anyone that's secure in themselves to a sufficient point doesn't suffer any of that stuff. I've got to ask, now that we've mentioned social media, I don't participate in personal social media. And I consider myself a complete weirdo, but how about you guys?
I've got Facebook and Instagram, but I don't use it a huge amount. But
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd look after our business side of things. So
so there's a strong degree of moderation with it. Yeah.
I don't participate in personal social media. I had Twitter for a period of time, and I just didn't like, even Apple News, I don't like the response it creates in me. I find it a bit dislocating. So I just thought, well, there's no need for that. So I've deleted everything off my phone. I've had to go back onto LinkedIn, but I use LinkedIn as a tool, not a like a source of information or entertainment. I don't want to be a consumer of that. I find it's really toxic. I don't think it's healthy in any way. So, and that's my personal opinion. I don't care if someone else wants to get on Instagram and doom scroll and knock yourself out. But for me, I don't like the kind of scattered feeling it creates in my brain. So I'd rather just say, well, fuck it, I don't want to know about it.
Well, I dare say that it would be there must be some connection between successful business operators, maybe more at the SME level perhaps, I don't know, but between that and a strong degree of moderation on personal social media.
Well, I think you just need to shut up and get on there. Because there is so much crap on social media, and when you are brilliant at what you do, there's a platform that you can really leverage and educate people on how you're different and what real business hustle, I'll use the word, looks like. And that's why, yes, I'm a bit of a social media hoe. I'm across everything. But you have to be, because there's so much bullshit out there. And I really think, it's a platform where you can have your own voice. You can, be that light in someone's life. You're not just having a trauma share, whatever the case may be. But I really think it is a powerful platform that we all underestimate. And a lot of people shit all over it. But if it's done properly with a strategy, I'm very passionate about this, as you can tell, it can really be positive.
But, and that's why I said personal, because if you use social media for business or to make money or anything like that, great. That, that's using a tool for what it's there for. I'm not saying it should be banned. If you're just doom scrolling,
of course,
what your friends ate for dinner the other night, just fuck me dead. I mean,
it's the biggest waste of time. There's a great feature on a lot of these things. It's called the unfollow button.
But the algo feeds you so much in the way. I don't know. I unfollowed. I thought I was smart, so I turned Instagram into a source of cycling news. I had Facebook at a period in my life. I really liked F1, not the actual racing, just the kind of the behind the scenes business of F1. So I only had F1 on my Facebook. I only had Instagram for cycling. And even that was just like, it just made me feel scattered. I always felt a bit kind of twitchy after I'd got off social media. I didn't feel like it gave me anything except for this kind of soundbite after soundbite after soundbite. And I don't like that feeling.
But I think it comes back to balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on these things and you can have a look and you can choose how much you want to invest in it and how much you want to let it run your life. So,
Agreed.
Not everyone needs to be on it all the time, and you don't need to believe the bullshit or drink the Kool-Aid all the time. If you're self-aware enough, you can go on these things and you can learn things and you can have a little laugh at a cat doing something stupid. And that's great. But it's when you get sucked into the vortex of it all and you can't get out and you believe the bullshit that the hustle
That you
or
see.
whatever it is. But, some of the stuff like Hormozy's been posting a lot lately about how, sometimes you do just have to work on the weekend. I don't think that's hustle culture.
No.
Sometimes you
No.
do
You
just
do.
have
Have
to
to put in
work
the
on
hard
the
I don't think
weekend.
Hormozy's hustle at all.
No.
I think he's very substantial.
Yeah. So, some of these things are little reminders to me, and
Yeah.
I think, oh, yeah, yep, good, I'm on it. That's good. But, yeah, so there's a balance between hating it and loving it and just being able to use it and for what works for you.
And
Yeah.
again, I don't judge nor do I care what anyone else does. I just don't even think about it. I just know in me it elicits a negative sort of like feeling of kind of like, what is it that I need to get done today? What's the most important thing in my life? I get very, very scattered in my mind. It creates a bit of anxiety, and then for me, that's kind of akin to saying I'll just take a little bit of heroin. I'd rather just stay away from heroin. Right? It's just like, no, I don't need to involve myself in that. I'll just park that, and it's not part of my life. And I get kind of wound up about it. Like people give me shit about it, and I don't care.
You get wound up about things.
No, as in I get people shitstorm me because I'm not on these things.
I think it's like alcohol at the end of the day. Some people drink it in moderation. Some people binge and become alcoholics and let it ruin their lives. And other people just say, you know what, it's there. Other people like it. I choose not to do it because I don't need it.
Boundaries.
Nor do I want it. And so it's fine. I have nothing against people that use social media for personal reasons. Do whatever you like.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one thing I can definitely see is people that are serious about starting their own business and being successful in business. Don't doom scroll for 8 hours a day.
No,
and a guy like Hormozy, who I like, he's honest with himself. He says, look, I tried going on holidays. I didn't like it. I'd rather just show up to work, thanks. But people like that have their people that can manage all of this for them as well.
That's the key.
You can't just sit there and manage your own personal social media while running a business empire and think that it's all going to end well.
But zoom out from the idea that it's doom scrolling. I don't think there's necessarily a connect between people who don't use social media and therefore they're successful in business. The people that I see that are successful in business are focused individuals. They know what they need to sacrifice and they know what they need to work on, and they just get on and get it done.
It's a correlation, not a causation.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But I don't think there are too many highly successful, motivated business people with a proven track record of success that say, yeah, I'm on Instagram 8 hours a day looking at cat videos.
No, you can't be.
Funny as they are.
No.
They are really funny. The way I triage is if it's really that funny, someone can send me a personal text message to my mobile phone.
Yeah.
If they abuse the privilege, that's it. No more. And so, you get small little drippings of entertainment like that, but going and hunting it for hours a day is I don't know how anyone could do it, to be honest.
No, so my team manages my entire social media because it is important to have a presence in terms of brand. But I don't sit and doom scroll. I have to have very hard boundaries because otherwise, you can lose like 3 hours of your day doom scrolling. Guys, the next topic I want to talk about is the TED Talk illusion. So leadership has become a bit of a buzzword. Everyone wants to stage the spotlight, the podcast moment. But when it's hard, messy and thankless, we have touched a bit on this, are people still showing up? How do you stay grounded in the real side of leadership?
Just go to work every day. Well, you go to work and you deal with the things that happen. You've got staff issues, you've got money issues, you've got supplier issues. Yeah, there's always something that's thrown at you. So it's easy to stand up and be inspiring on these, again, back to social media platforms where you've got the air and the time and the space to make these wonderful speeches. But when you're actually in the trenches every day, the emotion comes at you. There's waves of it, and to be a good leader every second of every day is very hard.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not always inspiring. It's uncomfortable. It's uncertain. It's hard work. But the way that I've navigated it is just be honest and frame the conversation. So particularly with the team members on a day-to-day basis, frame the conversation before you start it. Right, we need to have a conversation, and this actually isn't that easy for me.
Yeah.
Or I need to talk to you about something, and I want you to think about it before you come back to me with anything. So really frame that conversation and be honest with them, because being this visionary, articulate person is not day-to-day reality.
Do you think everyone can lead, Soph?
I don't know. I don't know if everyone can lead. I don't know that everyone wants to lead. I think that you have to have some kind of internal desire to want to be up the front and be able to believe in people. I'm not sure it's for everybody. I can only comment for myself. I feel like I've got, I can see a vision. I can see where we want to go and I want to take everyone on that vision. But learning how to actually communicate that to people has been a real challenge. And so those TED Talks are great because you can learn things. You can pick a little snippet from here and a snippet from there. But ultimately you have to find that for yourself. And as we said before, the way that I've learned is by getting it really fucking wrong a lot of times and going home, driving home and thinking to yourself, well, that was bad. You shouldn't have done that. Do it this way next time. But what I have found is over the years, now I'm getting more times where I'm driving home going, oh, I think you dealt with that quite well.
Yeah, great.
So, that was good. You didn't overreact or however it might be. So whilst the TED Talks are great to listen to, they're not in the trenches every day dealing with, the people and their emotions. That's probably the hardest bit because everyone comes to work and brings something along with them, a little backpack full of issues.
Yeah. Paul?
I think everyone can lead. I think Sophie's bang on. Not everyone wants to lead, so they'll never be able to lead because if they don't have the want, but it doesn't matter. I look at a lot of those TED Talks and a lot of people that stand up and purport to be leaders, and I think it's context dependent. Like, if I had a nice cushion of a government monopoly and a few $1 billion in the bank and the guarantee that if I couldn't pay the bills, the government will just step in and pay them anyway. Well, am I really a leader?
Yeah.
Even if I'm at the front of the organisation, am I really a leader? And maybe in that context, yes. But as an SME, I kind of think about it as like you've got to be the leader. I don't think you need to be charismatic. I don't think you need to be articulate. I don't think you need to be any of those things. I think what you need is extraordinary conviction because it's a little bit like Gallipoli, like you're standing in a fucking trench with bullets flying and people are saying, get up and over the side of the trench and run at that machine gun nest. And you've got to be the person that says, you know what, I'm shooting myself too. Yeah. I'm absolutely shooting myself. Like this one might go horribly wrong, but we're going to run at that machine gun nest and it's full of angry enemy and like a lot of you are going to die. And that's a very graphic depiction of it. But like metaphorically, I don't imagine in those trenches in any kind of armed conflict, I don't imagine many of those people would have been charismatic, bold leaders. I reckon they would have been standing there just thinking, Christ almighty, I'm going to end up with a piece of lead in me.
Terrified.
Guys, this is what we've got to do. So it's not about charisma. It's not about it's exactly what Sophie just said. What's the vision? Where are we going? How do we get there? And we've got to go there. It's the conviction that people look for.
It's living your values as well. So
100%.
Understanding what you value. And in a team perspective for me, I think about, right, every day if I go to work and I show them what my values are, they're going to start to learn and understand what my decision is going to be and why I'm making that decision. So if you can be really consistent every day, then what that does is it builds confidence in everyone in the team as well because they know, oh, shit, she's going to be mad today because we did X, Y, and Z. Or, well, I know she's going to do this, so let's get ahead of it.
Yes.
But if you're consistent and you live your values and they understand what your values are, then you can be a leader that people actually look up to. When you're really inconsistent and you're up and down, that is harder for people to follow.
Yeah.
Now, the thing for me has been over the years when times are really tough, it's very hard to be a consistent leader because you're trying to manage your own emotions.
Yes.
So I'm not saying I've got it right, but that's what I'm learning over the years is if be consistent in your values and what you show to people, and then they will start to understand what you stand for.
But I also think you have to reconcile quick, smart. If you're a leader, you're a leader 24/7. you're always on show, and you can't not be on show.
Yeah.
So, there are mechanisms that I've found to like take a bit of that pressure off, but you just have you got to know what you're signing up for, and you've just got to run with it. Don't get all caught up in the idea that, I can be a leader on field and then Friday night go down the pub and get myself completely rat-assed and act like a dickhead, because people are going to find out. Like, you're on show all the time as a leader. So the mechanisms I have is like zones of privacy.
Yeah.
Where like nobody can get to. And for me, that's places like the bike and not in Australia, away from Australia, where – and it's not that I'm going to go and act like a complete idiot. It's just I don't feel that pressure of saying I need to be consistent with my values. I need to be, talking about the future. I need to have absolute conviction, all of these sorts of things. I can just let those go.
Yeah.
So it is an understanding everyone can be a leader. Not everyone wants to be. If you want to be, you're signing up for something very serious.
Yeah.
Very serious, and do it, because people depend on you when you're a leader, and don't complain about the fact that they depend on you. That's the essence of being a leader. Because if people aren't following you, you're not leading.
Yeah.
Like, it's written in the title. Someone has to follow you for you to be a leader. If they're not following you, it's not on them, it's on you.
Yeah. Marcus, anything you want to add?
Yeah. I mean, a word like leadership is such a broad, nebulous word that really depends on context, who and what you're leading at any given time, and it's a very subjective criteria when we judge who's a good leader, who's a great leader, and all of those sorts of things. I disagree that everyone can be a leader. It's all relative, because a leader can only exist if there are followers. So there always have to be a degree of followers. And saying that everyone can be a leader is like saying I can go down to the nearest bowling alley and roll a 300 right now. Theoretically I can. Am I going to? No, I'm not. There are some people just out there that are never going to have the aptitude to be effective leaders in anything that people find valuable.
Yeah.
However, when we're talking about business, that's one thing. When we're talking about leading people into battle in a war, that's another thing. When we're talking about leading a household with children and those sorts of things, that's a totally different thing altogether. And it really depends on the context that you're talking about at the end of the day. What I find in business a lot of the time is we give people a hat and we write the word leader on it, whether it's frontline supervisor, mid-level manager, general manager, CEO, all of these sorts of things. And usually or often it's a case of the Peter principle applying, that usually you reach your point of natural incompetence because you've always demonstrated you could do the job below, and they thought, well, maybe you can do the job above, and eventually you find your level of incompetence. And that's why we see a lot of ineffective leaders out there, because they don't grow on trees. And a lot of them are just miscast, and they've been given the hat that they should never have been given in the first place, and life would have been a lot better if they were a highly effective follower. Other than that, it's very difficult to encapsulate or summarise what makes a great leader. You'll have an idea that you're doing all right. If your organisation is successful, you've built it from the ground up. You've been consistent. I think consistency is definitely a common thread from what we've talked about. And if you have staff, they don't leave you every 5 minutes. If staff have hung around, that's generally an idea that you've done an okay job.
Yeah.
And you haven't pushed things too far that would make them want to leave for whatever reason. So it's one of those things, nobody could ever describe themselves as a great leader. It's just one of those things that other people have to put that label onto you based on how we perceive it as human beings. But whether you're a good leader or not, if you just want to succeed in business, ultimately we get back to the original part of the conversation. You're making the money, you're having a good time along the way, then it's generally that's the thing to focus on, rather than saying that they should have me on a TED Talk one day. Having said that, I do love them. I love listening to successful people talk about a particular aspect of their lives they're on stage for an hour or 2 or 3. It's such a short amount of time relative to what they've gone through, their struggle, all those sorts of things. You wouldn't even know it, but just for a couple of hours or an hour, they're giving you something that's hopefully really, really valuable. And it really depends what they're talking about. Sometimes they're talking about something I'm not interested in, of course, but a lot of the time you will listen to them talk about something of particular interest for a couple of hours, and it's highly beneficial just to get their opinion. Take it or leave it, agree, disagree, whatever you like. But it's really important to listen. That's why I'm a bit of a podcast junkie when it comes to listening to them, because I like ending the day where I don't talk. I can try to talk, but it's a bit stupid.
Yeah.
Sometimes I talk out loud if they say something I firmly disagree with for my own entertainment. But just shutting up and listening to someone for an hour or 2 is highly valuable.
Yeah.
I think, like going back to the TED Talk thing, I do think people overread and over-research. And if you want to be if you're running a business, if you got your own business, you're a leader. So get fucking good at it.
Yeah.
Right. Or don't, but just accept the consequences of that. A lot of people just if they want to be a great leader, go and read another book.
Yeah.
And then another book. And I always take it back. You never run a marathon from inside a book. Someday you've got to pull the shoes out, tie the laces up and run.
Yeah.
And even if you're running you're paralyzed, you've got to get out there and run, because that's the way that you will improve. And anything, it's grinders win. Like if you're a shit leader and you're running a business, you're still a leader.
Yeah.
You just happen to be a shit leader. Best you work out. But I think, to Sophie's point and to Marcus's point, stop, have a think about what you're doing, reflect, check your ego at the door. If whatever you did as a leader was bad, don't bash yourself up. Fucking stop and look at what you did and work out how to do it better. And then maybe do some sort of, research. I don't know, but there's too much. I hear all these people say, oh, I read this book and I read Simon Sinek and I watched this. And it's like, okay, but what are you doing about it? Or what do you mean? That you read the book means nothing.
True.
Fucking lead and have a look at what's happening in your business and be open-minded, accept that you're going to make more mistakes than not, and grind. Grind your way to being a good leader. That's how you're going to be a good leader.
Yeah.
Don't expect it magically pops out of the book and punches you in the face and soaks into your brain, and then tomorrow you're the world's best leader.
Yeah, for me that comes down, I drive a lot. I'm in the car a lot, so I'm listening to podcasts. So you'll hear something and then it's reflecting that back onto, oh, well, that's what happened to me yesterday.
Yes.
And, oh, I could have done it that way, or, oh, yeah, I actually did that. Good on me.
Yeah.
Or however it is. So it's the balance between the doing and then finding some feedback mechanism, whether that's people in your staff saying, well, you did this and you shouldn't have done that, which is great if you can have that level of trust with your team as well, or using those podcasts or books or whatever it is to then reflect back on what you've done and how you've reacted. And just reading the book and not actually doing is not going to get you anywhere.
No.
Honestly, I hear so many people, I've read Hormozy. Okay. And now what? What do you mean? What are you going to do with it? I just, for things that require some sort of practical application, and leadership does require practical application, I'm a great believer, and statistics will tell you the truth. So there's one book about leadership that I think is it. And I'm just like, that's the taxonomy. There's the 5 principles of leadership. Just follow that and you're likely on a statistical basis to be a better leader. So that's what I think is correct. So where has success been accrued previously? Just fucking copy it blindly. Stop trying to invent shit. If it's a solved problem, just go and do it, because you've got so many other things to look at.
Yeah.
Just copy that is my view. I don't profess for that to be the correct way, but I do believe it's an efficient way of picking up things at a high impact and getting going on it.
Yeah.
I'll say one other thing though. I've seen many highly successful people in business made shitloads of money, were horrible leaders, and they were having the fucking time of their lives. They didn't care. I've seen professional athletes do it as well, where they've gone, I'm the best player on the team. Everyone looks up to me for my skill, my talent. I contribute to winning. I'm not a role model, and I'm not going to be one. So stuff it. I don't have to be a leader.
Yeah.
So I think you can also just give a disproportionate weight to being a great leader as being the most essential thing in your life.
That comes back to your purpose, doesn't it?
Exactly.
What is your purpose? Is your purpose to be the best at something? And then it doesn't matter. Whereas if your purpose is to enrich everybody in the organisation, then you do need to be a better leader. So you really need to go back to that first discussion point, which is, what's your purpose?
Guys, I do have one more topic I quickly want to touch on before we wrap up. So having it all versus losing it all. We're told we can have the business, the family, the freedom, the wealth, all of it. But the reality is building something meaningful often costs more than people are willing to admit. When you started your business, did you ask yourself what you were willing to sacrifice and was it worth it?
I don't think I knew what I was getting into.
You and me both.
Quick mail. What is having it all?
Yeah, good question.
What is having it all?
I think there was a list there, wasn't there?
I'm a ridiculously practical human being. And I just I don't think about the cost or whatever. It's like, what sort of life do I want to lead? And what I actually want is freedom. And it's not this kind of thing about, I don't have to and this and that. It's just like, I want absolute freedom in everything I do. So I kind of looked at that and, by the time, and I fell into business, ass first and backwards, probably half drunk. I didn't set out to be in business. I thought I was going to be a software engineer. I thought I was going to be, sitting behind a computer with thick glasses. But like when you kind of go, oh, hang on, what's the vehicle? What's the best, most effective vehicle for the lifestyle I want to lead? It's a business.
Yeah.
So then I don't think about the cost. It's the investment. Like I need to invest in order to get this return, and the return I want is freedom, and it's multifaceted freedom. I can't think of anything else. I don't know any other vehicle in life that gives you that level of freedom. It is a business. So I don't know, but, having it all versus losing it all versus what was the other thing?
So having it all versus losing it all, we're told we can have the business, the family, the freedom, the wealth. But the reality is building something meaningful often costs more than people are willing to admit.
Bullshit. You have to wake up and you have to walk into walls all day, every day. And then you should be very specific about how much you want from that business, pursue that, and just be very clinical about it. You can't have it all because if you have it all, just on the basis of maths, you have to discount everything. Have the one thing that you want and chase that. There is no balance. Fuck off work-life balance. It's a complete horseshit.
Yes.
It is complete, and it's a toxic ideal that is causing more confusion and more stress with anyone than I've ever seen. This ideal of work-life balance.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
It's not for real. Me, it comes down to choices, right?
Yes.
So and this whole thing of seasons in your life. So having it all, inverted commas, what does that mean? Well, as a woman and a mother, there's a time when having it all means staying home and looking after your child.
Yes.
And then there's going to be a time where you're like, okay, now having it all is the kid going off to school and me being able to work more. Or,
lay your ears back and have a crack at it.
Yeah. So it changes all the time, and having it all, I don't know. It's for me, it's not a financial thing. It's about as you go and as you grow in your life, in your personal life, in your business, you make choices as to what's the most important thing. You focus on that, you make it happen. Having it all, I don't know.
There's the old hackneyed phrase, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And what all is, again, that's up to the individual. It's for you to decide what all of the things you want are, and if you're realistic about it, you could probably achieve them all. If you're completely unrealistic about it, then you're going to have a bad time.
There's a cost. Yeah. There's a cost to having everything. So you need to weigh that cost up against the benefit.
I don't think as business owners we sit down and make these kind of highly, pragmatic decisions about, there's a cost and there's a benefit. And it's like I look at it from my own perspective and go, there's a problem and there's a certain amount of people experiencing that problem. I want to try and solve that problem for as many of those people as I can. And it's probably unrealistic, but I just kind of go, well, what's the most I can get out of myself? And like there is no balance in that.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean on both sides of the equation. If I'm off and if I'm checked out, don't fucking contact me. I don't want to know about you. I don't care if your house is on fire.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's the time I need to stop and reset, enjoy and smell the roses and whatever. You know, like I'm off in June, I think it is, for a bit of me time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about work. That's not balanced. Like, and you know, like that's not cost versus benefit differentials or anything like that. It's just I go hard at it. I'll take some time off. And when I take some time off, I want to take some proper time off.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know. I don't think about it like that. And I think people take a lot of complexity into their decision making. If you want to do it, go do it. If you want to have it, go get it.
Yeah.
If you don't, don't. Look, shut the fuck
I think
up.
where, again, this is part of the conditioning that we have from childhood onwards, that we're all told that we should be collecting as many gold stars as we possibly can just for the sake of collecting gold stars without actually stopping and thinking, hang on a sec, who am I? What kind of person am I? What do I want in life? Am I chasing those gold stars because other people told me I should be chasing them, or am I chasing them because that's what I want? I think there's a really good book recommendation I'll give on that point. It's called I Moved Your Cheese by Deepak Malhotra. He's a lecturer at Harvard, among other things. It takes barely 45 minutes to read the book, a fictional book about three mice on this very point. And I think stopping and processing who you are and what you realistically want out of life to fulfill yourself as best as you can and help as many other people as you go along, it's a really important point because I see this a lot. This gets back to this hustle culture thing as well. People are just doing it because they think that's what they're supposed to do. And again, it goes back to this conditioning. I mean, the other thing that I find fascinating is how the lunch area and canteen and eating areas in primary and high school look strikingly similar to the ones in the CBD under the office towers. It's all a conditioning to get you to be the best little worker bee you can possibly be with as little resistance as possible. And it's the ones that just sort of poke their heads up and say, hang on a sec, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
Is there another way through this maze that would be better for me and those around me? And I think that's a really important point that gets lost.
Yeah, and you talk about conditioning. I kind of, the older I get, the more I realise my dad was actually pretty good. When I was young, I thought he was a prick. I genuinely did because I used to say to him, can I have X? Again, I'm a nerdy little kid at heart. I wanted a Commodore 64 when I was 13. And I said to him, my dad's a very, very imposing, very scary guy at his prime. Like when he was in his prime, he was extraordinarily intimidating. So it used to take me days to muster the strength. And I remember going to him, Dad, I want a Commodore 64. And, I thought I'd really nailed it. And he went, oh, okay. I was like, oh, can I get one? He's like, yeah. Fantastic. So I'm like, walked away thinking, yeah, I've nailed that. And then like weeks went by and I'm like, when do we get my Commodore 64? And he went, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean? So if you want it, you go get it.
Yeah.
I had that drilled into me. If you want it, you go get it. You're not going to get anything from me.
Yeah.
And like that sounds like he kind of didn't feed me and I had to go and like fend for myself and hunt rabbits and stuff. It wasn't like that, but it was anything that I determined I wanted, I got told you have to get it. And I just went and got it. So I've never, I've carried that forward in my life. I never think about, well, I want X, why do I want it? So in my head, for my conception of the world is if I want it, I want it. And I don't care what it is. That's what I want. So I go and get it. How that relates to having it all, losing it all, I just don't think like that. It's that's what I want. Go and get the thing.
I think as well, having it all versus losing it all, there's a choice about your risk tolerance here. So how far are you prepared to push something in keeping it and potentially losing it? So, particularly in a family business, we might not make as big a bolder decisions within our business because we want to make sure that we can pay everyone every week and do all the things we have to do.
Of course.
So if you're starting off and you don't have a big team and it's just you and you've got a little bit of money in your back pocket, you can push the envelope a little harder and risk losing it because you don't have as much to lose. So I'm kind of reading this a bit around, well, how much are you prepared to sacrifice and risk losing things? If you've got kids and a mortgage, then you're not going to push as hard necessarily as somebody who doesn't have those things. So there's also this way of looking at things, that you've got to not covet, but look after what you've got and not risk losing it. And that doesn't mean that you're not driven and really wanting to achieve something. But going back to the family business, I do think that family businesses tend to take a longer term view of these things. So they might take longer to get there because they're looking after what they've got and they don't want to lose what they've got.
But Soph, isn't that specifically you're doing what you want?
Yeah, that's a choice.
Because
it's a choice.
The textbooks would say lay your ears back, go and lease 5 facilities around Australia, build the biggest 3PL in the world because that's what's right. The market's there, jibber jabber, jibber jabber. You don't want that.
No, and
you don't have to overthink it, right?
That's where the TED Talks and the social media come in, and you think, oh God, I'm not trying hard enough, and I need to do more, and why are they doing so much better than me, and I'm not good enough, and whereas actually it comes down to having it all versus losing it all, and I'm okay that what I've got is enough.
Yeah.
Not saying I don't want more or to be better, but I'm not prepared to step over that line to lose it just to see if maybe we can rule the world.
But that's want v need.
Yeah.
You don't need it. You want it.
Absolutely. I'm hungry to be the best that I can be, but I'm not prepared to risk the 25 people that work for us and over making a decision for the ego. And again, going back to purpose versus ego, the ego can go, well, I want it all, so I'm going to make this risky decision.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't operate that way, and I think I got that from my dad. I think I've pushed it a little more than what he did, and that's a good thing because we should learn from our parents, and
Definitely.
then they all want us to then, improve on things a little bit more. But that's how I kind of read that, having it all versus losing it all is what are you prepared to lose? What are you prepared to risk? And what are the non-negotiables that I'm not prepared to put this on the line because it's too important to me?
I think losing it all is a important risk assessment part of the equation when it comes to being in or starting a business in particular. I'll probably just add a practical point here. If you're a full-time worker, you're considering starting a business, you're making good money, 150 grand, 200 grand a year, maybe more, and you've got a significant other, maybe a family, children and all of that sort of stuff. If you go off and start a business, there's a very, very strong likelihood that it will strain your relationship.
Yeah,
it will strain
100%.
your family, and you have to be prepared for that. The one thing I would suggest that someone in that position do to minimise some of that strain is go and talk to the bank and get a loan if you think you're going to need one first to create a buffer zone. Do not do it after you've quit your job and start the business because you are now radioactive waste as far as the bank is concerned. So don't get it back to front like that because even if you think you've got enough cash savings, the likelihood is you probably don't. And that comfortable lifestyle that you've become familiar with may go backwards a fair bit, and it'll start going backwards at the worst possible time when you're not sure if this business is going to succeed or fail, and you're now becoming more worried it's going to fail because it hasn't broken through yet. And you don't even necessarily know that you're doing the right things to achieve the success you're looking for. You won't know until you've achieved the success. Maybe you need to go and talk to some people. So if you're minded to create a buffer zone through a loan, do it first.
Great advice. Guys, I am mindful of time. Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. Quick round, just one-liner, your best business advice you could give our listeners, Paul?
Grinders win.
Thank you, Soph.
Yeah, just get out and do it.
Yeah, Marcus?
Have fun and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
most importantly, have fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for all that you've shared today. I have the utmost respect for each of you as business owners and as leaders as well. And thank you for having faith in what I'm doing and giving up your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Always
Thanks,
a pleasure.
guys. Cheers.